So a few weeks back, I bought this RT with 60,000+ miles on it, and it had a decent front tire and a squared off rear tire, and you can see it's still squared off even though I've managed to rub off those chicken scripts completely off of both sides of the tires. You can see the belts actually showing here. I took it up to the mountains of North Carolina to correct the chicken strip situation, and I think I may have overdone it. I'm also suspicious that these 2-year-old tires that were on it had turned to crayons. Now here are the tools that I used. 2 Torx bits, a T45 and a T50. The T45 is for the hanger bolt for the exhaust. The T50 is for the lug nuts. Lug nuts, that's right, I said lug nuts for the wheel. Here I am pulling the hanger bolt for the exhaust, and then it's just simply a 15mm bolt underneath with the clamping the exhaust, the silencer to the exhaust. You just loosen that and swing that thing out of the way. Pretty simple procedure to get to the wheel. And once you pull that bolt, the exhaust might tend to fall a little bit. The clamp on mine was pretty tight, so next thing, all I had to do is crawl up under there and get that 15mm, loosen the 15mm bolt for the clamp holding the 2 pieces together. Then simply loosen the 15mm nut on the clamp. And then once that's plenty loose, probably the clamp will slide down. Then you can grab the silencer on the exhaust and just twist that out of the way. You can remove it or do like I did, which was just grab a hold of it and twist it out of the way like this. Just enough space so you can get in there and get to those lug nuts and remove your wheel. So once you get the exhaust swung out of the way, you swap your bits out. Your T45 becomes a T50, and you mount that, and then you can start pulling the lug nuts. Make sure you have your bike in gear like I do. That way you can use the engine to hold your wheel in place while you pop these lugs out. Lug nuts, yes, I said it, lug nuts on a motorcycle. I love this design. I've been intrigued by this by many bikes in the past, but this is the first one I've ever had. I've always had to squirrel around with the axles, pushing axles through spacers and trying to line up the axles. It's just a pain in the ass. It usually takes me 8-10 minutes just to put the daggum axle back in. So anyway, once you get these lug nuts pulled, all you have to do is just grab the wheel and yank it off. I did learn that there may be a problem with the hub that's on here. They did have some problems with the aluminum hubs. I think it may be a factory warranty issue, so I may have to actually replace the hubs. But my instructions were, don't over torque it, and I will not because I don't want my wheel coming off at 80 miles an hour, which is kind of a scary thought. Anyway, I'm going real slow here. It's my first time with this procedure, but once you get the wheels or the lugs off, they just pop right off, and you can see the scary nature of these crayons that I rode up into the mountains. I thought it was kind of handling really funny. A couple of times I thought I may have some low air, but this thing had good tread on the chicken strips. You can still see how squared off it is in the center. Full disclosure, I do go through big heavy motorcycle tires pretty quickly, but I've never I don't think I've ever taken tires to this point. I've actually had a flat on a big cruiser, just rolling down the road, I don't know, 80 miles an hour, and poof, it just went flat, and luckily I got it over to the side before it came out from under me, but that was a center tread issue. Now here I am popping the valve core out. I carry a tire maintenance kit. This is a tire maintenance kit. It's got minimal stuff in there, but I keep my valve cores and caps in there, and this little tool that I'm showing you here is a valve core remover, and it just fits down in there and grabs a hold of the valve core so you can let the air out quickly. I mean, you could you could push on the pin and manually release all the air, and this is a valve cord that I'm showing you this and kind of showing you how it works here. But the cord just screws down in there, and the valve inside it is basically operated by that little the little nipple that comes up. You push it, or when you're putting air in it, you know, it pushes, it opens that valve. But here I am removing the valve core and releasing all the air. My first thought is, hey, I've got spoons, I can change this. And once I realized how stiff this tire was, I thought, hey, you know, I need to balance this thing too. So I decided to take it over to my buddy Rodney's shop in Leeds, Alabama, because he's got all these fancy machines. Have him not only quickly remove the old tire, but mount and balance the new tire. And that was a fun part of the day, watching him, all the ease that comes with this fancy, I've never seen a motorcycle tire this nice, or a motorcycle tire machine this nice. And you know, of course, he makes it look like putting on an inner tube. Now here he is soaping up, or maybe in this case even greasing up. It's basically all lubricant, whether it's soap or grease. Funny thing about tires, they're very sticky. I think that's why we use rubber on tires, because it's very sticky and grippy, and that includes the bead going around the edge of the rim. It doesn't really want to go. It wants to just stick there, and you've got to use some kind of a lube or soap or something that's slippery. You have to break that surface tension, and you can see how much trouble he's having with this fancy machine, having to use a spoon in there. He actually has to, at one point, he has to switch up the technique to actually get this over the rim. And once I saw this, I was really glad. I knew it was stiff, I just didn't know how stiff, and I'm just glad at this point I didn't fool around in the yard for an hour and a half trying to get this thing mounted out there in the leaves and the grass. And this is I've never seen a machine with this little attachment here. I've never seen this. It's pretty impressive to see this thing in action, and how easy it was just to push it over the rim, and just made it look so simple and easy. And I know how much struggling I would have done with a stiff rim in my. Well, I've actually got 4 spoons. 2 of them are huge. I could probably change a car tire with the other spoons. But if you want to see something really impressive, I did a tire change video on the bus. I had a guy come out and replace my one of the tires on the rear of my bus, and he did it all with the rim mounted on the bus, just standing there beside the bus. He did the whole tire removal, tire change on the side of the bus. It was pretty impressive. Check out the link above here. That's scary, ain't it? You got all the goodie out of it. Jeez, look at that. Have you ever seen one come in like that?
Oh yeah.
So there's other idiots out there.
Lots of them.
I thought I might be all by myself. Guess not. So after we got the tire mounted and inflated. Rodney pulled his special hub adapter to go onto the wheel so he could balance the wheel, and he spent several minutes trying to explain to me why he needed to do all these measurements on the tire like he's doing now. He's measuring the distance from the machine on this on the shaft, and then the odd thing is he pulled out these freaking calipers and measured the width. And I've never seen this before, but apparently this special very special, very interesting machine that he uses to balance here has to take in all those measurements, and he spent several minutes fruitlessly trying to explain the concept to me, and I finally started getting a little bit of a idea of why and how and all this stuff that he seems to understand effortlessly, and it actually took me a while. But here I am remounting the tire. I've got a time code running here so you can see how quickly this thing goes on. This was the hardest thing I did right here, is lifting the thing up with my foot and lining it up to the holes. But it's very similar to a car tire. You have to do the same thing to a car tire, except the hub that I'm putting it on is a lot narrower than a car tire typically. Once you get it on the hub on a car, it kind of hangs there easily, and then you just have to line the holes up. But little bit of difficulty there, but you know, I'm used to using my feet for stuff other than walking. I think I'm probably more adapted as a monkey or a gorilla than most people. If only I had a prehensile tail, I could really do some damage to the world. But you can see I'm less than a minute in, and I've almost got all the bolts in the wheel already. Once you torque the bolts down, then it's just moving the exhaust back into place. And I was just shocked. I knew I was going to go on fast by how quickly the taking it off took. I knew that it was going to go on almost as fast. I just didn't know how fast. Kind of because I wasn't standing around scratching my head trying to figure out how the best way to do everything was. I knew just reverse the process of pulling it off. But then once you've got to I forgot to tell you, you've got to alternate diagonally across the bolt pattern, because you don't want to you can see I'm doing it here, alternate. You don't want to go around in a circle, in other words, because you could put the wheel on wrong. Apparently you could strip or crack the hub out if you did that. So alternating crosshatch alternation of the bolt, the lug nut, well actually it's bolts, it's not lug nuts. I keep saying lug nuts, but it's actually bolts. Lug bolts is probably more accurate. They look like lug nuts, but they're actually bolts instead of nuts. So but 2 minutes in, I've almost got the wheel installed, and I'm having trouble with this old ratchet. It's a Craftsman, shockingly, but I guess they all wear out eventually. Maybe I need to go see if I can get a replacement half-inch drive before they actually completely go out of business. Anyway, so once I get the lug bolts installed, all I have to do is twist the exhaust back up into place, which may have been just as tricky as the as putting the initial tire onto the hub. It's a little bit tricky. It just takes a little bit of strength, and you have to convince this thing, and then lining it up with that bolt. Just I want to say hard, but it's just a little bit of trickiness to it, because you're also dealing with the joint, how the silencer joins onto the rest of the exhaust. But once you get it in there, You just put that 45 Torx back on there, start convincing it further to comply, and it just depends on your ability to convince mechanical objects to behave. And then once you get it started, it's real quick and goes really quick. Just don't lose any of those pieces. There's a rubber grommet washer in there and a washer on the other side. But then once you get that on, it's just a matter of moving that clamp back into place and putting your 15 on that clamp, and then just simply tightening it down. How does that sound so weird to me? Tightening. That's it. That's the English version. I bet they say that word a bit different in England and maybe even in Australia. Tightening. Tightening the bolts. Did I put them in? Okay, it's not 9 o'clock and I haven't finished my second cup of coffee yet. And this is what you have to do when you're a shade tree mechanic. You actually have to crawl around on the ground. Mostly because I'm not really good on my knees. My knees are worn out, and it's a lot easier just to lay down sometimes. And this is one of those times. I had this handy dandy mechanic's yard mat that I can roll around on. But you can see I'm approaching the 5-minute mark, and I think it was just over 5 minutes that it took me to put this thing on, and I'm still just blown away. The more I work with BMWs, the more I like them. I like some of the designs. Well, a lot of the designs on Ducatis is just extraordinary. How an engineer said, wow, this is a smarter way to do these things, and just said, screw it. Everything else is stupid. But I'm just finishing up. All I have to do is put on the side case, and that's just a matter of going and finding it and snapping it on. And I love the side case designs here too. And you can see the side cases are kind of torqued up and screwed up, but I didn't do that. That was the previous owner. And I'm done. That had to have been the easiest tire change I've ever done in my life.